Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's currently the eve of November 17, 2023 in the United States, the morning of November 18, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis are held in the Gaza Strip. Hamas released a video today of an Israeli hostage, an 86-year-old man, Arya Zalmanovich. In the movie, Zalmanovich is seen receiving medical attention, and later the camera then shifts to a different scene in which he is shown after he had died. In the statement that Hamas put out when they put out the movie, they stated, and I quote, "The detainee, Arya Zalmanovich, card number, his ID number, received intensive care, and after recovering he was returned to his place of detention and died due to panic attacks as a result of repeated bombings around his place of detention, knowing that he suffered from chronic diseases, including heart diseases." In Israel, they have not confirmed that Zalmanovich is in fact dead, however the movie does show this. I will add that in previous videos that Hamas released of the hostages, each time there is a repeated claim that the hostages are being endangered by the bombings. This is Hamas attempts to continue to pressure Israel to stop its bombings because it is endangering the hostages as well. In addition, the government of Tanzania today announced that one of its citizens that had been presumed kidnapped in the Gaza Strip, two bodies have been identified as dead in Israel, died on October 7th in the initial attack. Regarding the ongoing negotiations, Al Arabiya reported today of an advancement in the deal towards releasing 50 Israeli women and children that are held by the Hamas movement in exchange for Israel releasing 50 Palestinian women and children that are held in Israeli prisons. However, later it was reported in Israel that this deal, which is being negotiated by Qatar, has been rejected by Israel. Israel is rejecting the notion that only 50 hostages will be released. They demand the release of all mothers and children. In Israel, there is growing concern that Hamas is going to separate families and either release children or release some siblings and some not as another pressure mechanism on Israel. Israel, according to this report, expressed willingness to negotiate regarding the lengths of pauses in the fighting that will be in this exchange, and has agreed to the sum of 70 or 80 hostages that will be released, but is refusing to allow any situation in which mothers and children or families are torn apart. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were rockets and missiles that they fired from the Gaza Strip towards the south and center of the country. Rockets targeted the areas of Ashkelon, Sderot, and Kisufim. There were also missiles sent towards the Gush Dan area in Tel Aviv, Holon, Ramat Gan, Petah Tikva, and the Shfela. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, there are reports that the IDF intensified its activity throughout Gaza City in the last 24 hours, and substantial explosions were reported in the areas of Jabalia. In addition, the IDF is still operating in Shifa Hospital, and is reported that it's uncovered many more entrances to tunnels and underground infrastructure beneath the hospital. In addition, it's also stating that there's more intelligence accumulating that hostages may have been held in the Shifa Hospital, and the IDF is hoping to use this intelligence to uncover where the hostages have been taken. Regarding the activity throughout the rest of the Gaza Strip, there were a couple of notable assassinations that the IDF carried out today. Ahmed Baher, who is one of the leaders of Hamas's Shura Council and a member of Hamas's political bureau, was assassinated. And in addition, Khaled Abu Halal, who is a former Fatah commander and then defected to Hamas and created units of Hamas within the Gaza Strip for former Fatah members, was assassinated as well. In addition, it was reported that after a 12-hour battle, the IDF managed to take over a substantial Palestinian Islamic Jihad outpost in the northern part of Gaza City. In part, this outpost contained many weaponry and a weapons factory. The IDF uncovered 2 trucks loaded with weapons, including Badr 3 missiles. These are specifically surface-to-surface missiles that pack a lot of punch. In addition, the outpost also featured training areas, and there was a model IDF tank that the IDF suspects was used in training in preparing for October 7th. The IDF spokesperson today in a press conference was asked, will the IDF continue its operation to the southern part of Gaza? And he answered, and I quote, "We are determined to continue. It will happen wherever Hamas is, and right now it is in the south as well. It will happen at the appropriate time and conditions for the IDF." In addition, the IDF reported today of humanitarian pauses in the area of Jabalia, Darj al-Tufah, and Sajaiya. So these are the continued pauses the IDF is doing for several hours a day. It called upon people from these areas to use these pauses to evacuate down south. In addition, there were also pauses reported in western Rafah and Tel Sultan area in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. Due to the different communication failures that have been in the Gaza Strip the last 24 hours, the Palestinian Health Ministry again did not put out any updates on how many Palestinians have been killed in the last 24 hours. That number remains right now on 11,470 Palestinians have been killed since the war began. Moving on to the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, the World Health Organization reported a substantial increase in diseases in different refugee camps in Gaza due to sanitary conditions. It reported yesterday that UNRWA stated that some of its plants are shutting down, specifically sanitation plants, and that sewage was flowing in the streets of Rafah. Relating to this, Israel today agreed for the first time to allow substantial entrance of fuel into the Gaza Strip. Specifically, the report says that Israel allows 60,000 liters of fuel to enter per day delivered specifically to UNRWA to allow the UN to operate its water and sewage plants and avoid the spreading of diseases. The reports indicated that the White House leveled monumental pressure on Israel to allow this entrance of fuel, and that increased diplomatic pressure has been stating that Israel's punishing 2.3 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip with its sanctions, and that the United States was saying it is losing its ability to defend Israel diplomatically if it does not allow the entrance of fuel at this time. In addition, after the IDF Civil Administration Coordinator stated that the fuel that it enters the Gaza Strip will also be diverted to operating some of these cellular services, two telecommunications companies in the Gaza Strip reported that they are starting to return to partial service after receiving fuel from the UN, and in fact the internet was shown to be returning to parts of the Gaza Strip in the last several hours. The White House called for making the fuel trucks entering the Gaza Strip a routine daily and to increase the amount of fuel. I only mention this because there's some discrepancy in the reports coming out of Israel, while Minister Gantz, who is part of the war cabinet, stated that the fuel is going to be allowed in once in the next 48 hours. Other reports stated that it's going to be a daily entrance. Meanwhile, the White House has called to make clear that it's going to be a daily entrance of 60,000 liters of fuel. In addition, it was reported that 73 badly injured Palestinians evacuated through the Rafah crossing to hospitals in El Arish in Egypt, and there are also reports that ambulances are preparing to transfer 35 preemie babies to hospitals in El Arish as well. There are no reports of trucks entering the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid. This is the third day in a row this has happened. There are a lot of reports that are stating this is because of the fuel crisis in the Gaza Strip that trucks cannot enter. Moving on to the West Bank, there was an attempted Palestinian attack today in the Bir Zet checkpoint by two Palestinians from Hebron. Both of them were killed. This is the second attack in 2 days of Palestinians coming out of Hebron. Responding to these attacks, the IDF has imposed what is called a breathing siege in the Hebron area. That means that checkpoints have been set up around the entire town of Hebron, and every car and passenger either entering or leaving Hebron is being stopped and checked. In addition, in the Balata refugee camp, which is near Nablus, the IDF carried out an air raid, killing 4 to 5 Palestinians. There are reports that these were from the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which is the military wing of Fatah. Among them are Mahmoud Asufi, who is the commander of the Balata refugee camp. In addition, after I reported yesterday that there was substantial IDF activity in Jenin and that the IDF was reported surrounding the Ibn Sina hospital, there was substantial violence within that area in the last 24 hours. 5 Palestinians are reported to have been killed in Jenin as well. In addition, it was reported that the IDF suspended a soldier that was filmed throwing stun grenades into mosques in the Burdus village as the mosques were calling people for prayers. A total of 21 Palestinians were arrested throughout the West Bank in the last 24 hours. Moving on to the north of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon, there was substantial RPG launching from Lebanon towards the Shomra, Shtula, and Menra areas. 4 Israelis were injured in different RPG fires in Menra. And in addition, an attack drone carrying explosives was launched from Hezbollah into Israel and was shot down and intercepted by the IDF. There were also mortar fires sent towards the Western Galilee area, specifically targeting Arab al-Ramsha and the Adamit area. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for over 11 border incidents in the last 24 hours. I mentioned this because there's a substantial increase in border instances that Hezbollah is actually taking responsibility for compared to previous weeks. The IDF responded with substantial aerial bombing to each one of these events. These included attack helicopters and warplanes, and specifically retaliated against a range of Hezbollah targets, including different command centers and infrastructures. There was in Lebanon specific reports of very, very substantial attacks in the area of Itaron. In addition, a surface-to-air missile was launched from Lebanon against an IDF drone. That surface-to-air missile was intercepted by the IDF. However, this caused substantial explosions in the skies of Israel, specifically around the Tzfat area, and there were alarm bells and sirens that went off throughout the entire north in response. In addition, it was reported today that the IDF attack in Syria yesterday was an attack against Hezbollah weapons transfers. So yesterday it was reported that the IDF carried out an attack in Damascus, specifically near the airport. And today it was reported that that was against a weapons transfer, presumably from Iran, to Hezbollah that was going through Syria. Regarding some of the regional developments today, in the Azerbaijan capital of Baku, an Iranian citizen was arrested on suspicion that he was trying to attack the Israeli embassy. There are no reports on what exactly happened. He was arrested in the last 24 hours and is currently being brought to court. In addition, the U.S. added today the leader of another Iranian militia in Iraq, specifically the Khatib Sayed al-Shuhada militia. Their leaders are now being put on the sanction list in the United States. Moving on to the political and general trends that have occurred, the French defense minister is visiting Israel currently, and he met with Israeli defense minister Gallant, and they discussed strategies and the future of the Gaza Strip. In addition, regarding some political developments, there was substantial uproar in Israel today, and specifically in the political establishment, regarding the war cabinet's decision to allow the entrance of fuel. So in Israel, there are currently 2 different cabinets operating. One is the general government cabinet, that is the government that has existed in Israel in the last 11 months, and next to it is the war cabinet, which is specifically a much smaller cabinet that includes Netanyahu and several ministers of the Likud, and Minister Gantz, and other ministers from the previous opposition parties that came into the government in order to help run the war. So responding to the war cabinet's decision to allow the entrance of fuel, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is the most hawkish figures in Israel's general cabinet, criticized the move and said that the war cabinet does not have the authority to do this. Miri Regev, who's a member of the Likud, also stated that the war cabinet has no such authority and called on the government, called on Netanyahu specifically, to revoke this decision. Deputy Speaker of the House, Nissim Vaturi, also from the Likud, tweeted, "We are too humane," I'm quoting, "we must burn Gaza down now." In addition, Bezalel Smotrich, the leader of the religious Zionism party, sent a letter to Netanyahu, not only demanding the revoking of the decision to allow fuel into the Gaza Strip, but also demanding that the war cabinet be expanded and that ministers from each of the parties that are members in the government be allowed to be in the war cabinet. So again, the war cabinet was established specifically in order to keep ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich out of the decision-making. In theory, the war cabinet is supposed to just deal with the implementing of decisions that the government cabinet actually decides upon. Smotrich is now demanding, if the war cabinet is going to be making policy decisions, then other ministers, presumably him, should be allowed into the war cabinet as well. Responding to all of this, the National Security Council in Israel, which is headed by Tzachi Hanegbi, who is a member of the Likud and a close affiliate of Netanyahu, put out a special statement stating that the war cabinet was only acquiescing to a special request from the United States, and that this will help rather than hurt the war effort. Hanegbi added that the amount of fuel being allowed in is the bare minimum, constitutes single percentages of what used to pass from Israel every day, and that it'll actually help the IDF as well, because if diseases spread throughout the Gaza Strip, they will also influence the IDF soldiers. UNRWA today reported that the 60,000 liters per day constitute roughly 37% of the fuel that they need to run all their different facilities. Finally, in a last political development, the Bahraini Crown Prince today, Prince Salman bin Hamad, called for a hostage exchange deal as the only way to lead to a pause in the war, and he added that as far as Bahrain is concerned, the red lines for the future are expelling Palestinians from their land, that cannot happen, reoccupying the Gaza Strip by Israel, that cannot happen, and having a military threat from the Gaza Strip towards Israel, that cannot happen either. And relating to this, move on to the future speculations regarding what will be in the Gaza Strip. In an NPR interview today, Prime Minister Netanyahu was asked what is going to be the future of the Gaza Strip, and he continued to state the same thing that he has been stating, that Israel will have overall military control for the foreseeable future, that the Palestinian Authority cannot take control of the Gaza Strip since it teaches its kids to destroy Israel, and that Israel doesn't have the right to exist. He was then asked, well, who, if not the Palestinian Authority, can take control? And he said someone who does not align with Hamas. Relating to this, Mohammed Dahlan, who was the former head of security in the Gaza Strip when the Palestinian Authority was in control of the Gaza Strip, gave an interview today to Reuters. So there are reports that the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, supports Dahlan being reinstated in the Gaza Strip and taking control of the area. He himself did not reject the idea, but stated that he will not just govern and destroy territory. He stated, and I'm quoting, "I do not see any vision from Israel, the United States, or the international community, and there is no point in bringing us in just to govern." He also stated that Israel must accept a ceasefire and begin implementing a two-state solution, since, again I'm quoting, "no Palestinian will surrender to an occupying force." So again, this tells us that there is thinking going on, at least outside the box, regarding what might be the future of the Gaza Strip, but once again, there's no actual plan on what is going to happen. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.